Well, this is a difficult time for people of faith. It's been a particularly difficult week. An onslaught of anti-freedom legislation has been building since the same-sex marriage debate of 2017. Now, let's not beat about the bush. If it was not for the LGBTIQA+ political lobby, and I'm very careful in making this distinction because I think there are many same-sex attracted people who are not motivated by animus towards religious people. But if it was not for the LGBTIQA+ political lobby, there would be almost zero threat to freedom of speech and freedom of religion in this country. That's just a fact. Federally, it looks like there might be temporary reprieve with Anthony Albanese walking away from his election promise to introduce a religious discrimination bill. Now, this is a bill that was supposed to deliver the protections promised by both Liberal and Labor for freedom of speech and religion in the wake of the same-sex marriage debate. Legislating to protect the freedoms lost in the marriage debate has been a poisoned chalice for both sides. It was never going to work because our politicians' aims are incompatible. It's not possible to have a bill which pleases radical LGBTIQA+ political activists who demand that Christian schools, churches and charities comply in every way with their dogma on marriage and their wacky and dangerous views about children's gender, and at the same time allow freedom of religion and speech to flourish. It's like oil and water. So Albanese has walked away, citing the lack of bipartisan support and a febrile public environment because of a rise in anti-Semitism and so-called Islamophobia. Now, anti-Semitism is there for all to see, but Islamophobia? I don't see protests calling for the genocide of Muslims or sermons being preached in churches calling for the killing of Muslims. We see this in plenty of mosques and we see this in plenty of protests on the streets of our major capital cities. But I digress. The Queensland government has recognised that freedom of religion and LGBTIQA+ rights are incompatible. This is important. The Queensland government has a new anti-discrimination bill which makes it crystal clear that radical rainbow rights on marriage and gender trump freedom of speech and freedom of religion every time. There's a brilliant analysis of this bill in News Weekly by Pat Byrne and Terry Kelleher. They write, and I quote, "The anti-vilification clause in this anti-discrimination bill says it will be illegal for a person or group to engage in a public act that a reasonable person would consider hateful, reviling, seriously contemptuous, or seriously ridiculing of the other person or group on the basis of the other person or group's protected attributes. That is, age, disability, gender, identity, race, religion, sex, sex characteristics, or sexual orientation." Now, who is regarded as a reasonable person to judge if an act constitutes vilification? That's the question. A reasonable person is defined as a person with the same protected attributes, that is, gender identity, age, sexual orientation, etc., as the person or group alleged to be vilified. Now, that all might sound very complicated, but the simple fact is if this bill passes, freedom of speech and freedom of religion is dead in Queensland. Christian schools, churches and charities will not be able to operate according to the Christian ethos on issues of marriage and the scientific truth about gender. But maybe all this pressure on Christians is a good thing. Our vision for human flourishing through marriage and family will never change, no matter what foolish politicians mandate at the behest of radical activists. This is an opportunity for light to shine because the Judeo-Christian vision is better. Politicians might be trying to snuff it out, but they won't succeed. As history shows, there will always be dissidents who will uphold the truth. Today is a day for dissidents. Some of us might have to pay a price to keep freedom alive, but it is a price worth paying. The time is fast arriving when peaceful civil disobedience may be necessary. If we care about the truth of marriage, faith, family, life and freedom, we will start preparing ourselves now. That's why the Family First political party is being revived. We simply must have a political vehicle to carry the truth and to carry our better vision for human flourishing into our parliaments and into the public discourse. I hope you will join us in that quest.